Well, hello everyone, and welcome to Management Leadership Theory. I'm Dr. Tom Marshall, and I'll be your professor over the next couple of months as we explore some of the concepts and fundamentals of leadership and management. Now, I want you to think as we begin today with Chapter 1, what makes a good leader? Now, you may have in your mind someone who you believe has been a good example of leadership in your life. And of course, as Christians, we know Jesus Christ is the best example that any of us can have. But from a more down-to-earth standpoint, what are some leadership qualities that impress you? Maybe there is a leader in your church, maybe there's a leader in business who had an impact on you or does have an impact on you. What is it about that person that stands out, that makes them different from the rest? And also, what about leaders who are not as exceptional as others that you may think about? What are some of the things that they don't do that you wish they would do as leaders? So today and in the weeks ahead, we're going to be looking at the characteristics of leadership and management. What makes a good leader? How should we lead? And also, too, how do we reconcile being a leader in the secular world and also give a Christian example? Well, I'm looking forward to the weeks ahead, so let's go ahead and start today as we look at some of the basic definitions of leadership. As we start in Chapter 1, what does it mean to be a leader? Welcome, everyone, to Management Leadership Theory. I'm Dr. Tom Marshall, and I'll be the one guiding you through our textbook and our class over the next couple of months. And I just want to give everyone a warm welcome. I'm looking forward to it. And for you online students who are primarily going to be looking at this stuff, just know that I'm here for you. Even though we may not be able to see each other face to face, you can contact me via email or on the cell phone. I'm available to you for whatever you may need regarding this class and so forth. So make sure you look at the syllabus. The syllabus will have everything that you need to know about what's going to be expected, what's upcoming. You'll be expected, of course, to read the book, and all of the projects that you'll be assigned to, you will see in the syllabus. So just make sure you keep up with that with your forums each week, and you'll be fine. Well, let's go ahead then and just get started. Well, leadership. That's one of the elements of this course that we're going to be focusing on. What is it? Well, there's a lot of definitions for leadership. There's a lot of opinions about what a leader should be doing and who a leader is. But if we're going to define it for the purposes of this class and, of course, with the textbook, it's an influence relationship among leaders and followers who intend real changes and outcomes that reflect their shared purposes. So, essentially what you see here is a collaboration between the leader and the follower. They are one mind, one will, and one purpose. And they bring together their resources, their talents, their skills to make the changes necessary to make those shared purposes come about. Now, that is a simple, in a nutshell type explanation, but it is filled with complexities, and as we go through this course, you'll see some of those complexities and some of those skills needed to be able to bring together followers and leaders in order to be able to accomplish your organization's goals. Now, what does leadership involve? Well, Exhibit 1.1 gives you kind of a visual depiction of it. First of all, leadership is intentional. That means you don't just let organizations do their thing. You have to be intentional about leadership. Leaders cannot be passive. They have to be involved. They have to be direct. They have to be able to cast a vision and to be able to make that vision come about by inspiring and motivating workers. It's personal responsibility and integrity. Now, I teach ethics. And ethics is one thing. Ethics is, before I begin, the study of how we should behave. But today, business ethics is lacking in our organizations. Even in some of our churches today, we see that. But leadership involves personal responsibility, not passing the buck. It's assuming responsibility for your actions and holding others responsible for their actions, and upstanding or maintaining and upkeeping integrity. Be a person of your word. You know, the Bible says, let your yes be yes and your no be no. Your word needs to carry weight, not because of who you are, but because they respect you, because you're a man or a woman of integrity. Change. This is another area that is really a constant. I mean, it's kind of a contradiction in terms, but the only constant today in business is change. So change is the ability to adjust, to redirect as the environment demands. And change is something that is a challenge for most people, not only just in business, but in their personal life and in ministry. You know, we're creatures of habit. So being able to facilitate change as needed is an important element. Shared purpose. And that goes along also with being able to influence and to be able to articulate a vision. Once you have an idea of where your organization should go, or once, if you're a pastor or a minister, God has laid on your heart the direction that your ministry needs to go, you need to be able to garner people with that shared purpose. You need to be able to elicit loyalty and motivation from people so that you can reach those goals. And that comes from your followers. You can't be a leader until you have followers. So followers are the ones who are going to make sure that vision is realized. And then finally you have influence. And we're going to talk about influence here this week and the characteristics of what a charismatic leader involves. But really the ability to speak to people, connect with people so that you can get them to do what's needed to be done in that organization. That's critical today in business. Now, leadership, we saw a while ago, it is influence. And this influence involves relationships among people that are active and not passive. You need to be involved with the people. You need to be intentional about your relationships with people. Just saying, hi, how are you, and them not knowing a thing about you or anything like that, that's not going to get you very far with the people. So they need to know that you are approachable, that you're there, that you are involved, and those things will help leverage your influence and ability to lead. Multidirectional. Leadership comes from all directions now. It can be lateral, it can be horizontal. So leadership comes today from all different directions, and we'll talk about that later. Non-coercive. You know, the difference between a dictator and a leader is that a dictator will coerce you into following. A leader will have you following because you want to follow, and that is an effective leader at that point. Reciprocal. That means there is a relationship that is interconnected with the leaders and other leaders and followers and so forth. And also people want substantive changes. That means just fixing a problem is not going to transform the organization or your ministry. People want changes that have meaning, that have some teeth to it, and so forth. So going through the motions, being passive, not trying to transform, but just have a transactional relationship with people, those are elements of a poor leader. So we want to be able to garner the positive areas. And qualities required for effective leadership are also needed to be an effective follower. Think about this. You need to be a good listener to be a good leader. But also you need to be a good listener if you're going to be a good follower. You need to have a shared purpose and a shared vision and so forth. So a lot of the qualities that leaders have, they garner while they were followers. And I believe in that idiom that if you're going to be a good leader, you have to first be a good follower. Leaders must have followers. Now there's a difference between managers and leaders. You can be a good manager and not have to deal with people. I did it where I was working for the military. I had a office in Millington, Tennessee, and I managed 900 recruiters all over the country. I never saw any of them, never had to see them, never interacted with them, but I could manage every one of their careers from behind a computer screen. But now a leader has to be able to garner the loyalty and enthusiasm and motivation from the followers. So a leader has to have followers. And effective followers think for themselves. They carry out assignments with energy and enthusiasm. That's what you want. And leadership is shared among leaders and followers. Everyone should be engaged. You know, an organization that is truly learning and organic, it's really not a matter of who's in charge. It's a matter of what's being done. And everyone should accept higher levels of responsibility, which means that we're not here just to do the job. We're here to change and transform the organization. And that's what you want out of your people. Now, when it comes to change and some of these concepts, paradigm has to come into play. So what is that? It's a shared mindset that represents a fundamental way of thinking about, perceiving, and understanding the world. A paradigm is it's kind of like a worldview. It's how you represent things, and it's your filter that will determine how you interpret events and circumstances and so forth. A paradigm, my Christian paradigm is that Christ is Lord. He was born of a virgin. He lived as a man, died as a man, rose again on the third day, and he is all-powerful, all-knowing, all-loving, and so on and so forth. That's my paradigm. But now what if, and it would never happen, but what if a Muslim came and talked to me about Allah and Muhammad, and I started to think in a different way? I started to follow Muhammad's teachings. That would be a paradigm shift, and I would see the world in a completely different way. So paradigms are the mindsets. Now they say here it's a shared mindset, and you can share that. I mean, organizations have a collective mindset, but you also have a paradigm that's an individual mindset, and it represents the way you think and perceive the world. Now think about how difficult it is to change that. And a lot of times in change management, you're changing paradigms. So you're not going to do it overnight. You have to chip away at it. And there are strategies that you can use, and we'll talk about that, but it's enough to know right now that a paradigm is that collective way that the organization perceives and thinks and understands its current reality. Now there's a new reality for leaders, and you see that here in Exhibit 1.2. And really what they're looking at is the old versus the new way of doing things. The old paradigm leader was just there to stabilize. If there's turmoil and disruption, you're there to smooth out the waters. You're there to bring about order and so forth. However, the new paradigm leader is there to disrupt, to change things, to get organizations thinking about different ways of doing business and relating to each other and so forth. The old paradigm for a leader was that of a controller. You do what I tell you to do. I will control, I will oversee every step that the individual or the organizations take. Today, a leader is a facilitator. You know, because you've been equipped, how to do the job. Mr. or Miss Employee, you're trained, you're motivated. So my job today now as the leader is just to help equip you, encourage you, and to be able to facilitate whatever you need to bring your goals, which are the organization's goals, about. And then the old paradigm, we have a competitor. You know, there's competition in the workplace. Today you're a collaborator. You're bringing together people, having them work as a coherent unit and so forth. Now here's another big one. The old paradigm for a leader avoided diversity. Diversity was seen as something negative. Oh my goodness, we're going to have people with different opinions and different backgrounds, different values and cultures. How in the world are we going to be able to make sense of all of the things that we need to do? And diversity was something that was seen as an intrusion. We were comfortable with people who agreed with us, who thought like us, and we could maintain that status quo. However, today, because of technology, because of globalization, and because of diversity, we have to be diversity promoters. That means we can't shy away from it. We need to embrace it, and we need to be able to bring together different ideas, different thoughts, different beliefs and values and cultures to be able to get a as broad as we can perspective on the issues that we're dealing with. And from those different perspectives, we can grow. And then finally, we see the old paradigm of the leader being a hero. The hero was the one who rose above, everybody looked up to, and the hero had the answers for everything. Let's go to so-and-so, and so-and-so will make things right and be able to, really take care of every problem. Today, the new paradigm is that of humility. And who better than Jesus Christ to be able to give us that paradigm for a new leader? An ancient prophet, teacher, God in the flesh, discipler, way back then, is today still the best example that we have in humility, in being able to know how a leader, a humble leader, should be. And these are kind of new realities for us, but there's nothing new under the sun. The Bible has been talking about all of this stuff from the very beginning. They just haven't read it or recognized it for what it is. Now, today, we're going to stop with this, but I do want to say, mentioning diversity and all of that, there's three things that has changed and revolutionized business, at least as we know it. Those things are globalization, technology, and diversity. Now, technology has come about today so that I can shop anywhere I want to, and I never have to leave the living room. Why? Because of online resources. So I have instant access to a global market. Globalization means that I no longer am competing with just local rivals. I have a global market in which I'm trying to compete, and I have a global market in which I'm expanding my operation in. So globalization and the opportunity for globalization has really changed the face of business. And for us, diversity. Now, I'll talk about diversity a little bit later on, but in the past, we'll call it for what it is. There was discrimination in the workplace. There was sexual harassment. I'm not saying that it doesn't exist today, but back in the days before legislation, it was very difficult for women and minorities to be able to have a place in the workplace of any importance. But several things have happened. Number one, the Civil Rights Act of 1961 came about, 1964 came about. And with that, the Civil Rights Act said that you can't discriminate based on age, race, religion, or anything like that. The problem with that was that it didn't have much teeth to it. It was just a document saying don't do this, and if you do, we gave them a slap on the wrist. So no one really took it seriously. But in 91, the amended Civil Rights Act came out, and the amended Civil Rights Act allows for punitive damages, which means that those who were discriminated against could sue the company, and the company would have to pay them money. And that changed the whole face of how we regard diversity today. It's not a matter of just treating your brother right because he or she is your brother or sister. Now you're legally obligated to do that. And if you don't do it, not only are you breaking God's moral law, but you're breaking man's law, and with that goes financial penalties. So we took another look at how we regarded people in the workplace through legislation. So some of this that you see here, some of these shifts from old to new, is not just because we wanted to be better people. It's because of the influence that globalization, that technology, and that diversity has had on organizations. So really they're forced to do that. Even the classes that you're taking right now, organizational leadership, well, that's not something that's been around for a long time. These programs emerged as a result of the need for us to be better leaders, to be able to facilitate the needs of the workers and to be more inclusive. And as a result of that, we have better organizations, but we're still a long way out and we have a long way to go. But classes like this will help you to understand and appreciate what it means to be a leader, not just in the workplace, but you can use this in church as well. Your churches today are in need, our churches today are in need of effective leadership. And unfortunately, seminary will train our pastors to be good orators, to learn the Bible, to preach the Word, but they have very little organizational training. So you may not be called to be a pastor, but you can certainly help your pastor and you can help your church by understanding these principles so that they can be more effective in their individual ministries. Well, guys, that's all I have for today. We'll pick up tomorrow and continue on with Chapter 1. Make sure you've kept up with your reading. And until then, God bless you, and I'll see you tomorrow. Well, as you can see, everyone, leadership is more than just giving orders to people. Leadership involves relationships, the ability to foster, to maintain, nurture, and to be able to elicit the motivation, to elicit the loyalty, and the camaraderie and unity among people. Those are key characteristics and fundamentals of leadership. Well, I hope you've been enlightened a little bit today about what you've been able to read and see on these PowerPoint presentations. Tomorrow, we'll go a little bit further into what it means to be a leader. Until then, God bless you. Have a good day, and we'll see you tomorrow.